ELD with Brainstorm MTG back with Scholars Wednesday Night Legacy. Here we have 4 matchups which I was not involved with this week, trying something a little bit different. And we have Mike on Reanimator versus Kenny with Sneaky Red. He's actually been putting up some solid results with that as of late. A very powerful, disruptive deck. I actually played against him during this tournament, and he actually got me really good with Chalice of the Void. And here we have a Thoughtseize being fired off by Mike on Reanimator. And 2 very similar decks in their win conditions, but very different in their execution. So Kenny going to be looking to put out those cards using Through the Breach or Sneak Attack, whereas Mike is going to have the less mana intensive requirement of just getting it into the graveyard and then using Animate Dead, Exhume, or Reanimate to bring them back. And we see this is at least a black-red version so far. We have Faithless Looting. His graveyard just off screen there, leaving us in suspense. So we know black-red for Mike, and Kenny on mono-red. With that basic Swamp, Blood Moon, Blood Sun, all of those effects are not going to be particularly strong. And then we have Lotus Petal, bringing back Gristlebrand off of Reanimate. So Mike losing a little bit of life, but that is a bargain to get this 7/7. Kenny really going to be up against it here. Now the only other side of that is the Gristlebrand not at its strongest in black-red from here, in that it can't draw into a handful of counter spells. Usually what Gristlebrand wants to do is bring in a bunch of other friends to the party, so surprising to not see the draw 7. Of course, Gristlebrand allowing you to discard his buddies when you go up past 7 cards in hand. So even if you can't get them in play off of careful or Faithless Looting, this build not running Careful Study, you'd still be able to use your natural discard step to stock your graveyard with some additional creatures, though attacking with Gristlebrand often enough. 7 at a clip adds up very quickly. And we've got our life total returning. A little trade to take care of on the other side of the board. Needed my phone to resolve that transaction, and here we go. Dark Ritual. This black-red build of Reanimator is so fast. Many people considering it a glass cannon, as it loses the show and tell ability of the black-blue build of Reanimator, which has really fallen out of popularity. At this point, it does seem like black-red, the more popular of the Reanimator strategies. Sneak and Show just really having established itself as a tremendous contender in Legacy. Reanimator and Sneak and Show used to kind of occupy the same space, but it does seem like there's a general consensus leaning toward those extra counter spells over the mix of discard and counters. And there we have an Animate Dead drawing the concession. Looked like the... can't think of his name. Sure, you'll let me know in the comments. He is, I believe, 4 a red and a black, and everybody discards their hands at the end of each turn. Not going to be able to come up with the name of that off the top of my head, but it is a tremendous card. So yeah, just let me know in the comments. And we'll be sure to upvote that comment so everybody can know it. He is definitely in kind of my standard trade binder, my regular person binder, as it were. And we've got access to Trinispheres, Sorcerer's Spyglass, Fairy Macarbes, Kenny, very familiar with graveyard-based strategies. He's played a lot of Reanimator as well as Manaless Dredge. Actually, Kenny, one of the first people I saw playing Black-Red Reanimator. Such a powerful strategy. So he will not be caught off guard, or at least won't be surprised by anything he's seeing. Trinisphere, very powerful versus a deck that's just trying to play so many low casting cost spells in the same turn. Very often looking to Lotus Petal, Dark Ritual, Reanimate, and Exhume, or Entomb and Exhume, all on the same turn. Man, that is a very different set of math when you're looking at paying 3 for each of those spells. There is no way you're doing that all in one turn. Of course, Trinisphere able to be played in this mono-red sneak attack deck, making it very unique amongst combo decks in the format. It can pack the most disruptive artifacts in the game. We've got Thorn of Amethyst, Chalice of the Void, and Trinisphere, all cards that this combo deck can play. So it still has the ability to just explode and have turn 1 wins, but it also has the ability to essentially just win the game versus faster combo decks with artifacts that are just so difficult to answer, and if you don't sideboard correctly, will actually make it impossible for you to win. Trinisphere, one of those cards that is restricted in Vintage, but legal as a 4 of in Legacy. Those are some of my favorite cards to keep an eye on. The power level of them is just so high, and in general, they just don't have quite the same amount of support as they do in Vintage. For example, in Vintage, you have Mishra's Workshop, which allows you to play a first-turn Trinisphere, and that, of course, leads to a lot of games which are no fun for your opponent. However, you're not that far off from that in Legacy. It's not unreasonable at all as a turn 2 play, and with the best of draws, you can still get it on turn 1. All right. While we're wrapping up this mulligan selection here, getting these hands chosen for game 2. I'd like to thank Scholars, of course. Kyle, the owner of Scholars, always doing a great job supporting Vintage, Legacy, all of the Eternal formats. I'll be looking at doing some 93, 94, and Pauper this year as well. We currently do Wednesday night Legacy every single week at 7:30, and you can see these broadcast live on Twitch with no commentary, and then with commentary on YouTube later. And Reanimator, not going to be keeping that 7-card hand, really needing the right type of mix in order to hang with all of this disruption. You want to be able to get down underneath it, and of course landing a monster early, really the best case scenario for Reanimator here. Sire of Insanity. There we go. Sire of Insanity. Each player going to discard their hands at the end of turn. Needed to look down for some reason to be able to think of that. Maybe some neuroscientists out there can explain that one. Accessing the deepest part of my memory there. That is a card that at one point would be considered going extremely deep, though I have seen it in this black-red build quite a bit more. First time I saw that was a local player named Rodney. He was a big fan of it. And there we go, that first turn Trinisphere. So that is exactly why it was restricted in Vintage. Mike going to be able to unable to play anything unfair for the first 3 turns. He's going to have to make 3 consecutive land drops before he even starts to play some Magic. He does have land number 1. And Kenny moving on to a Chalice at 1. Really assembling the hate here. Mike very far behind. Oh, and he misses the land drop. So this This is really getting gross. Kenny, at this point, really just needs to go ahead and land any type of threat. I mean, even I guess Mem Knight's pushing it, maybe giving him 20 turns would be a bit much, but there's a really strong chance even a 2/2 Simian Spirit Guide would be able to just mop this game up before Mike even is able to assemble 3 mana and play the necessary spells to get his guys back. And of course, if you can get him low enough on his life total, that eliminates Reanimate from contention. Reanimate damaging you, or at least making you lose life. Of course, there is a little bit of a difference there. You're going to lose life equal to the creature's casting cost. So if you can get him down below 8, he's going to have a really tough time reanimating something that matters. So Kenny just needs any type of clock to show up here, and he's going to just push this game right out of reach of Reanimator. Looks like Mike is going to be using his natural... Nope. I take that back. It looked like he might be looking to use his natural discard step to get a creature into the graveyard. Oh, and there's Thought-Knot Seer. That is certainly a clock. That is going to exile a creature so much better than making him discard it. That guy is just a Vendilion Click with a huge backside, and that's going to cause a concession right there. Mike perhaps saving plenty of time for game 3 here. We're only 10 minutes into the match. There's no chance of going to time, but perhaps keeping some information away from Kenny. Almost no chance of him winning that game as it stood. He would have needed to get a creature into his graveyard, and then he would have needed to exhume or animate dead. Reanimate dead being shut off. Of course, always interested in hearing feedback on these videos. We are constantly trying to find little ways to improve them. If you do enjoy this type of commentary, let me know in the comments. If you think anything can improve, of course, let me know. And let me know what type of matches you'd like to see. For this video, I'd really like to know if you guys prefer me covering 3 or 4 of the same deck against a variety of other decks. For example, last week I played Storm and put all the videos of me. This week we have 4 different decks that I have no idea what's coming. So yeah, let me know what you guys actually prefer there. Is it more fun to see the same deck battling a bunch of different opponents and kind of seeing a tournament journey from round 1 through the final round? Or is it more fun for you to just not know what's coming and have 3 or 4 random matches where you just don't really know what you're going to get? Or if there's decks that you guys really want to be seeing on camera, let me know, and we can get those regardless of where they are in the tournament. The winner's bracket, loser's bracket, wherever it is, it can be useful to see these decks played. Even when they're not played perfectly, it can be useful to see other people's misplays even, because we are all susceptible to those, and it is a lot less painful to learn from someone else's mistakes. So it looks like we've got some hands that may be capable. Mike really staring at that hand. Looks like he's really contemplating whether or not this is going to get him to the finish line. And it is on him to make the call first. Kenny will then have the option to mulligan, not making it clear at all whether or not his hand is good enough. And Mike decides to keep, and Kenny gets rid of it. Kenny definitely aware of the type of hands that he's going to need for this type of matchup to go well. Certainly a hand like last time is ideal. Of course, a little less powerful on the draw. Mike does have the ability to just absolutely combo out. And tough to tell from this vantage whether or not that was a gaze of a man contemplating a mulligan or somebody just looking at his different lines to victory. Kenny unhappy with that as well. Going to 5. The subset of games that are going to be blowouts is dramatically decreased here for Kenny. There's not a lot of 5-card hands that absolutely destroy your opponent. Of course, that first turn Trinisphere is possible with as few as 3 cards in the deck. Oh, and that one doesn't even look like it has any lands. Yeah, that's gross. Oh, so Kenny really falling victim here to probably perhaps the only real criticism of that deck is kind of the lack of synergy of some of the hands. Of course, many of the hands extremely powerful. Getting 3 mana on the first turn, playing cards like Blood Sun, Blood Moon, Trinisphere, or even just 2 mana for a Chalice on the first turn, extremely powerful. But there are a bunch of hands that really are not keepable. And here it looks like he has just the City of Traders, which is the most punishing land drop he could have. So Mike may have an easy go of it, depending on how strong his 7-card hand was. And he will be on the play to boot. Still thinking it through. And we've got Lotus Petal. What's he going to do here? We got Lotus Petal being sacrificed. And he's got the Dark Ritual. And he's got Unmask. And he unmasks himself. And he puts that Sire of Insanity into the graveyard. And then he reanimates it. So there we go. First turn, Sire of Insanity. Kenny, all of that mulliganing for naught. He's just going to go ahead and discard. He had a Soul Land and some Thought-Knot Seers, along with a World Spine Worm. So that worm is going to get shuffled back in. And he has lost his Soul Land, which looks like City of Traders. And he is going to need Runner, and another Thought-Knot Seer in all likelihood here. That is one way of him stabilizing against the 6/4, to be able to get down a Thought-Knot Seer in 3 turns. He'll need to hit 2 Soul Lands and then a body. Mike really showcasing an all-in hand here. And that's like no lands. Grove of the Burn Willows. 3 more hits, and this thing is over. And that is it. So an explosive start there. Turn 1 for Mike. Really had to do a little soul searching there to think if it's going to be worth it. Of course, that hand, if there was a Surgical or a Fairy Macabre from Kenny, would have been an absolute blowout in the other direction. So he took the gamble, and it more than paid off there, creating a very easy game 3 for him. So congratulations to Mike there. Well played on both sides. A lot of fun to watch. And this has been ELD with Brainstorm MTG. Thanks for watching.